You're listening to 92.1 West Coast Radio 2, the Gambia's news authority.
It's 8:40, 40 minutes past 8 o'clock in the morning here in the Gambia. This is Coffee Time. I am 𝒕𝒉𝒂𝒏, coming to you live on West Coast Radio 92.1 on FM. You'll also find us online at www.wcr.gm. It's Tuesday, the 25th of July 2023, and from now up to the end of the program at 10 o'clock, we are going to be in conversation with Mr. Lamin Manneh from the UDP, the United Democratic Party, the Gambia's biggest opposition party. There he holds the position of Assistant Senior Administrative Secretary responsible for foreign affairs and Gambians in the diaspora. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to come to the program this morning, Mr. Manneh.
Thank you very much, Peter.
We had one interview before, but that was on the telephone, and this is our first in-person conversation. We always like to begin by asking our guests to introduce themselves. Who is Mr. Lamin Manneh? And the reason I ask is, after announcing that you were going to be my guest this morning at the end of yesterday's program, somebody said to me, is it the same Mr. Manneh I encountered first in New York and worked in various places? And I responded to the person saying, I've only spoken to him once. So far, I've only met him once. This was during the launch of the Malagen publication. And Tuesday morning, tomorrow morning, which is this morning, is going to be my opportunity now to find out as much about Mr. Manneh as possible. So who is Mr. Lamin Manneh?
Thank you very much, Peter. He's the other Lamin Manneh who was in New York.
Oh, okay.
He was my classmate in Gambia High School in the sixth form, and a good friend of mine, a brother. Both our fathers are from Brufut. Originally, my family hails from Nyomi.
Okay.
And I was born in Kaur, where I went to school until Form 5, primary 6, and then I came to Banjul Gambia High School.
Ah, you went to the wrong school.
You know that was the right one. And from the Gambia High School, I went to Dakar University for a year because I wanted to go study law in France. And at the time to go to France, you had to go through Dakar for a year because they believed we didn't know enough French. But we had one of the best teachers in the Gambia. We had Crispin Gray Johnson, who was my French teacher, so we learned so much. When we went to Dakar, we didn't learn anything new. So we spent a day in Dakar just being, enjoying ourselves. And then we went to France, where I studied public international law at the bachelor's level and a master's in private international law, still in France. Then I came back and worked for Senegambia for 3 years, whilst out of the Senegambia.
The Senegambia Confederation?
Confederation in Dakar.
Okay.
Yes. The Secretariat of the Confederation in Dakar. Because at the time there was an economic recovery program, they couldn't employ anybody, so my mentors at the time, I call my mentors, Hassan Jallo, the current Chief Justice.
Chief Justice, yes.
And J.B.S. Langley, who was the Secretary
General, yes.
They facilitated my move to Senegambia Confederation. I went there for 3 years, and I had one of my best mentors when I was there, Pierre Diouf. Pierre Diouf, he was my mentor. He gave me the opportunities that I had.
He headed the Secretariat for a very long time,
right,
didn't he? Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He headed down, and he was at the Senegalo-Gambian Permanent Secretariat and the Senegambia Confederation, etc. So then he gave me scholarships from the Senegalese government. I went to study in Pittsburgh, where I did development management, and then I went to University of Manchester, University of Salford, Greater Manchester, where I studied interpretation and translation.
Again, wrong city in the UK. You should have gone to Liverpool.
Oh no, that's the wrong one. That is the wrong one and the wrong football team. It's Man U all the way. So after that, I worked for 3 months at the President's office in early 1991. And I was between the Foreign Affairs and President's office for 3 months, and then I went to the African Development Bank. Because when I came from the UK, I told them that I was interviewed at the ADB and I could go anytime, but they still took me there. So after that, I went to the ADB. I found the other Lamin Manneh there. So we worked for some time, and then he went to the UN system.
Okay.
So that is Lamin Manneh, and I worked at the ADB now so for 29 years.
Okay.
In different capacities.
And how did you come into politics? Okay, you could say, well, while I was at the 𝒂𝒂𝒊𝒏 Secretariat, of course, you know.
Yes, there we had to do with politics, and when I was at the President's office, I dealt with politics, etc. But that was, you know, at arm's length. Mm-hmm. But then when I was in France, in the beginning, the 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒆𝒔𝒔 coup took place, which brought me closer to politics. And then after that, we came back home, and then the 1994 coup took place. And things started going awry. And we all knew that we had to take a stance at one point, because you can't just sit back in your corner and just, you know, your international civil service, you're okay, but your country is going down the drain. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we all started taking sides, you know, and then doing it quietly in our corners, because at the time, you know, it had to be very careful, particularly when you're not here. Mm-hmm. People could get victimized because of you.
True.
So we did what we could from a distance, but yes, we did our part quietly, and then when I retired and came back
I'd like
home,
to know what your part was. What did you do, you know, I mean, for your part?
Yes, when we were out there, we were contributing to political parties. And we had people we were working with at the time and different people. So, but you did that quietly in a corner, you contributed funds, etc. And you did what you could in terms of advising. And also when the Gambians came to the African Development Bank for negotiations, you would meet with them, you would counsel them and show them the pitfalls. Because most of the time people come to these international institutions to discuss and to sign loans without really good preparation. And they would come maybe with a lawyer, one lawyer. And they would be facing a battery of lawyers from the ADB. And most of the time they were really not grounded into what the ADB was doing and how it did things. So you had all of these issues which were going, so you would try to give them as much support as you can. And in your negotiations, look out for this, do that. We did that. We talked to people. And particularly, I think in 2016, 2017, when Jammeh left, and we knew that all...
Well, 2016, we voted him out of office.
Right, exactly.
Midway through, you know, the transition, you know, process, he had a change of heart and tried to
stay.
Exactly. But then eventually he left at the beginning of 2017.
Exactly. So when he left, we knew that a number of the contracts signed in the extractive sector, as we call it, that is in the mining sector, etc., were really skewed against the Gambia in favor of the other co-contractants. So we knew that those things had to be renegotiated. And at the time we had set up in the ADB, and it's still there, a facility called the African Legal Support Facility, which does provide legal assistance free of charge to African countries to renegotiate contracts like that and situations which are really awful for the countries. We did it for Guinea, we did it for Zaire, DRC, etc., and we thought the Gambia needed it. So at the time, the head of the African Legal Support Facility was a good friend of mine, 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔, who was the head of legal department at 𝒂𝒂𝒏, and we brought him to the ADB, a very fine lawyer. So I sat with Steve and said, Steve, you know, you guys need to go to the Gambia to help us with our extractive industry contracts. These people are ripping us off. And you've been doing that for other countries. We need you to help with the Gambia. He said, Lamin, I promised not to go back to the Gambia because what Jammeh did to us and the things we tried to help him with, and he wouldn't listen, we decided to call it off and to write him off. We're not going to the Gambia anymore. I said, look, Jammeh is going. They are not quite left yet.
Oh, okay.
But this was
so this conversation happened in 2016?
Yes,
when Jammeh was still around?
During the impasse, yeah.
Okay.
I said, but he's going to go. I said that because I knew he was going to go, because at the time also, I was talking to the Senegalese ambassador in Abidjan, but I'll come back to that. So I knew he was going to go. So I talked to Steve. I said, Steve, you guys have to field the mission there, review the contracts, and help us renegotiate those contracts. He said, I'll think about it. I said, no, don't think about it. Do it, please. So he's being a good friend. They agreed. They filed a mission here, and they looked at the things, and they started working on those extractive industry contracts. And they did a good job.
Fantastic.
To help us out of those situations. And a few years down the line, another young Gambian, Ousmane Gadjigo, helped again when BP was exiting the Gambia, and they were trying to give us a very bad deal. They were proposing to pay $5 million, and that was a pittance. So Usman Gajigo...
$5 million to get access to what?
To exit the country, because they had signed contracts and they were using COVID and the rest to exit the country without doing what they were supposed to do in terms of extractive industry, drilling, etc. Usman Gajigo helped to put them, GNIC, that's a fine gentleman there, I can't remember his name. Usman Gajigo put him in touch with the African Legal Support Facility, and they helped. They got him some very good extractive industry lawyers from London, from the UK anyway, I think it's London. They helped them renegotiate the contract, and BP, before exiting, had to pay $35 million instead of $5 million.
Oh, wow, 7 times what they were offering.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So these are facilities available at the ADB, free of charge. And we do this to help this country, because we believe in this country. It's our country. Again, during the impasse, Abdul Had Souran, who was the Senegalese ambassador to Abidjan, was my classmate in law school in France. And we were very close. And so we were discussing what could be done to help this country. And ECOWAS was moving, but ECOWAS had to have Senegal as the spearhead for whatever they did. So we discussed, and he helped a lot, and he put me in touch with people in Senegal, in the high echelons of the administration, who I would rather not name at this point.
Sure.
So we discussed with those people, and they were helping to put the ECOWAS move together. And we knew ECOWAS was coming. And at one point...
When you say ECOWAS, is that the ECOMIG, the military force?
Yes,
okay.
Military force, yes. But ECOWAS political leadership also coming, and then the ECOMIG behind it. So at one point, it got to a point where Jammeh didn't want to budge, and things were getting difficult, and he was holed up in State House saying he was in Kanilai, but these people knew where he was. And they had to make him understand that they were serious about him leaving. So a few days before, when we had this chat again with those people in Dakar, they told us, look, we're going to make him understand we are serious. We're going to send some military aircraft overfly State House for him to understand that we are serious, and we're going to come in, and if he tries to resist, he would not survive.
We remember the experience.
Right. So again, we call people and say, this is going to happen, but don't you worry, it's because they're showing him that they are serious about this. All these things were happening. We knew it, because the objective was what? To save the Gambia from bloodshed. Jammeh lost, and he needed to go. And he needed to go quietly without killing Gambians, without killing soldiers coming to assist the Gambia. So we were facilitating all of these things, each of us in his or her own way. And I was not alone. There were people with me in Abidjan who were also in the margins working along these stories. We did what we could. And eventually, thank God.
And remain quiet and modest about it.
Exactly.
Although you have people who go around telling you just how much they did to save this country, and therefore, they have a right to whatever illegal enjoyment they are enjoying at the minute.
Because our objective was not to try to make a name for ourselves. Our objective was to try to save this country. We contributed to development, to National Development Plan and all of those things. We did what we could. We proposed to...
You had an input in the National Development Plan?
Yes, we did. We did. This is a whole set of people at the ADB. We had a good input into it. And we insisted on creating the think tank to use here for bringing in talent from outside to use free of charge.
Are you disappointed that the think tank didn't last?
No, I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed because whilst we were messing up with that, the Senegalese government, I will mention this one, Mubarak Law, those people are interested in getting the think tank and they wanted to know what we're doing. And they moved it in Senegal and they put it to good use in Senegal. The think tank is something we could have used so effectively, but it was bloated in the end. Yeah. It was useless.
Some people felt it was just too big.
Right.
Practically everybody was in the think tank.
If you have such a big body, you wouldn't do anything effective. Create subcommittees if you need to, create subcommittees and then work in different subcommittees on different issues. And you are much more effective. We have a whole array of talent out there, the Gambians, within the country and in the diaspora, And you can tap from that wealth of experience and knowledge to enhance delivery in this country. Because we all want to see this country go forward.
Sure.
That's why we all fought to get the dictatorship out of this country. And we thought that this new government coming in would do the right thing.
But those in government would say they are doing everything humanly possible to take this country forward, yet those of you in opposition are doing all you can to just drag the country backwards.
You see, Peter, that is where the dishonesty lies. When you look at this country for the past 7 years of lost opportunities, what do we have to show? This country was the darling of the international community when the transition happened. We got to a point where everybody was willing to give money to the Gambia because this country got rid of a dictatorship without shedding blood. Everybody was willing to help this country. The round table of donors that was organized not only wrote off quite a significant chunk of our debt.
The one in Brussels?
In Brussels.
The one that promised, was it 1.3 or 1.4 billion?
1.7 billion.
Yeah, okay, 1.7.
Yes, a good chunk of our external debt was written off. And $1.7 billion was pledged to this country. And we all played our part in trying to make that happen because we believe in this country and want to see it move forward. That started coming in. But when the government started playing rogue and got rid of the good people who were trying to do something, and in this case, this happened to be the UDP essentially. When they got rid of those people and programs started going off track and corruption started setting in big time, the donors held back on the money. We had less than 400 million disbursed from that 1.7 billion pledge. We wouldn't have had all the 1.7 billion, but we could have had at least 1.3, 1.4 billion from that. Now, if you get that kind of money and you leverage it, you can bring in 2-3 times that amount. We could have brought in an additional $3 to $4.5 billion using that 1.3, 1.4 that might have come in. What would we have done with that in the Gambia? Enormous things. But it didn't happen because this government went rogue. And the order of the day became corruption. I wouldn't even try to start to name all the corruption cases that the audit office has pointed out because we will hear till tomorrow. We don't have the time. So the country started going the wrong way. Everything was going bad. Every single project in this country ended up in a mess. Never finished on time, never finished on budget. All the procurement bizarreries that happened. And we ended up spending so much money for almost nothing. Look at the airport. The renovation was supposed to have cost about $40 million. You go there today, it's a disgrace. You take all the road programs and projects in the country. Not one single one of them was finished on time. Not one of them is up to standard. So we are creating huge liabilities for the country. Because those road infrastructure we put so much money in are going to cost so much more money to maintain than to build. Why? Because people spend the money in the wrong things and on the wrong way and in people's pockets. These are the things that were going wrong for the country. They will tell us we built so many schools and so many classrooms. Show us where they are. We don't know. Every single project in this country that they talk about has gone wrong. And all the wrong contracts are signed. Secure report should never have been signed. It was signed, the Gambians were ripped off. You come into your country, you pay money, you go out, you pay money, and the tourists come in and have to pay money. And because of that, we have lost such a good opportunity in tourism because it was beginning to boom again. And, it's not the amount of $20, $25 or euros or whatever. It's the principle that people object to most of the time. A number of companies pulled out, not because the tourists couldn't pay $25 or euros or pounds or whatever it is, but it's the principle they were against. So they pulled out. The tourist industry is dying. People who lived on the tourist industry are suffering. And they are Gambians who need help. The government could have just scrapped this secure report contract and pay whatever penalties they had to pay.
I was going to say, if they were to do that, it would cost the country God knows what.
It will cost us money, but they made that bed. We have to sleep in it. So at least pay something and free the industry. Sometimes we have to take those hard decisions. We need to pay that amount of money. We could negotiate. We could go to arbitration. I don't know what the contract is, but if you see the contract, we might be able to get something. Look at the contract, see what the exit clauses are. Because if that is properly done again by good lawyers, you should have exit clauses which allow you to leave under certain conditions. If you don't have those exit clauses or sunset clauses in the contract, you negotiated a bad contract.
Yeah, and this report, that is doing the rounds, it's even in today's Standard newspaper about, drug trafficking between here and Brussels, going through our airport.
Exactly.
I mean, when we are told that security report is there to give security,
Exactly.
if things can go in and out of this country
Absolutely.
that easily, how do you justify
that
security
says it
report
all.
going on?
That says it all. And, in 2021, in our campaign message for the UDP, I said that in one of our campaign messages in English. I said, we are heading for the wall. Let's do something before become a narco state. I invite anybody who wants to look at it, go to 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏. I'm sorry to do that.
No, sure, go ahead.
Go to 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏 and look out UDP campaign message, Lamin Manneh. You will find it there towards the end of my statement in English.
So do you feel that we have become a narco state?
We are a narco state. Look, Peter, about 2 years ago, or just maybe under 2 years ago, a trawler, a yacht came from Guinea-Bissau, loaded with cocaine, and he spent almost 10 days, 2 weeks at Denton Bridge, being repainted. And it was supposedly going to be used for trips down the River Gambia. It didn't happen. It left here to go to Senegal, and it was intercepted just before, as soon as it got into Senegalese waters, because it was being followed by DEA and other institutions. They knew this ship was here with the drugs, but they did not alert the Gambian authorities because they knew if they did, the drugs would just disappear.
Oh dear.
So they kept the information.
Disappear into the country.
Yeah. Why are we getting suitcases of cocaine being shipped to Brussels? They know where it goes here. These guys see it, they know it. So they kept quiet. They waited until when the yacht left here. As soon as it got into Senegalese waters, it was intercepted by the Senegalese Marine. The DEA and the others informed the Senegalese they were waiting for it. It got there, they captured the ship, arraigned it, and they had 2,000 kilos of cocaine on the ship.
Goodness me.
And there are other cases we know it. There was a container at the port which was arrested, which had drugs, and it just disappeared in thin air. Arms into thin air. So many of these things are happening. Everybody knows about it. And more importantly, our international partners, they know about these things. Let's not kid ourselves. We are being monitored. There are satellites all over the Gambia, all over the sky, watching the Gambia. These people have information that you wouldn't even think about. So they know what is happening in the country.
So the opposition knows what is happening in this country. What's the role of the opposition in making sure that they change things for the better, even though still out of government? Has the UDP tried to work collaboratively with the Barrow administration?
Well, I think for about 3 years they tried when they were in the government, and they were thrown out, and they became the arch enemy of Barrow's government. When UDP, all we are saying is, let us listen to the opposition. There are things that are going wrong. I mean, any smart government should listen to its opposition. There are things your people are doing wrong, and that you can change, you can improve upon if you listen to. Criticism is supposed to help us grow, to get better. But if you shut yourself up to criticism, you are just going to get worse and worse, and you're going to encourage mediocrity. And that's not what we want for this country. We want some sort of meritocracy. People have to be able to move forward because they have earned that right, not because somebody decided to hand it to them over on a silver platter. If we get the wrong people into the wrong jobs, we're going nowhere, and only the opposition will tell you that. And you've got to be able to listen to that. We do not hate Barrow. We do not hate any minister in this country. What we do is we love this country. And when we see something going wrong for this country, we say it, we call them out, hoping that somebody will listen somewhere and do something to enhance the situation of this country. All of these wrong contracts we're talking about, all of the things that were pointed out by the audit office, a normal, serious government would take action on that. But what happened? They brushed it under the carpet, and the president says it's an opinion. For God's sake, it's an opinion? Your National Audit Office?
They could point to what happened recently and say, well, this is how the president is taking action when the regional government minister, who is also responsible for land, tendered his resignation. The headline was, Barrow accepted it. He didn't sack him.
Yes.
Just accepted his resignation. Suggesting that he could have asked him to stay on, and he would have happily stayed on.
Yes, and isn't that really, really unfortunate? When you have people who have embezzled tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in this country, and they were called out by the audit report, and the president calls it an opinion. And this gentleman, we know from the audit report that he set up a company.
Well, the reports he said were opinion. Those were from the National Audit Office.
Yes.
Obasanjo's problems were unearthed by the internal audit.
Right.
That was an internal audit report.
Internal audit, and that was something more personal than anything else. This gentleman set up a company while he was governor for CRR, and he was giving himself contracts. You see the conflict of interest, see the mismanagement, the corruption there. He was doing all of that. Up to a point, I think it cost us $1.27 million. And what more did they unearth?
Which is a lot of money outside the Greater Banjul area.
Yes, yes. But which is
it's still a lot of money here. But
which is pittance when you compare to what is happening with Security Court.
Yeah.
When you compare what is happening under the COVID funds. When you compare what was happening at the airport, at OIC. When you compare all of those things, it's a pittance. But nothing is done about those things. Banja was sentenced to 2 years for a pittance as well. What about his minister? What happened to him? What about the other people who were working with him? What happened to them? They gave them a pass. All the cases of corruption that are happening in this country, nothing was being investigated. These things should have been referred to the police immediately for further action for investigation. Now they fired the people who were at the Medicine Control Authority and said they will be prosecuted. Really? What about the minister himself?
What's the minister's problem?
He was overseeing these people. It was under his watch. You couldn't tell me that if you are a minister, those things are happening under your watch, you don't know it, and you don't deserve to be there. And when all these COVID funds disappeared and under his watch, why was he not called to book? Why is he still there? Why are all the different ministers under whose watch all this corruption is happening, why are they still there? Because that doesn't bother him. This one did something which has personal connotations, we believe. That was why he was fired. And they told us he resigned and his resignation was accepted. Come on. Come on.
The biggest issue right now, reading the social media and the press, is the asset recycling.
Yes.
All right? We'll get to that. I'm sure you're itching to get there. But
yes.
Still on the issue of roads and bridges, you mentioned the OIC. The president has said that the summit will take place in the Gambia towards the end of this year. Do you believe him?
Of course I don't. I've become a doubting Thomas with that. We have heard that said for so many times and for these past years. Look, OIC is not sitting there waiting for the Gambia to get its act together to come and have a meeting here. OIC is a serious institution that does its work according to schedule. We are told the roads will be ready in December. I don't believe that. They are out of funding. Why did they go ask for over $800 million to finish roads? They don't have the money anymore. It all went into the wrong projects, into the wrong pockets because of the tender issues. We have been told that a gentleman from Senegal, Cham, was given a contract to build a $100 million hotel, Radisson Blue, and that is almost a year since he signed the contract, not even a stone or a brick or a trip of sand has been moved to that site.
Well, Gambia was included, in the plans of the Radisson Blue chain, and they're supposed to come here and build a hotel in excess of 400 rooms.
When in the year 2200?
There's no timeline to it.
Come on. These people will not get that thing happen. The OIC summit, if it were to come here, Peter, those heads of state would fly into Yundum Airport for the meeting in the morning. In the evening, they get on their jets and go to Dakar to spend the night in Dakar, because we don't have facilities to receive them here.
Yeah, do we even have an airport big enough to,
there you go,
host
and save enough
some of their jets?
Exactly.
Because these are
the jets probably will be able to land because we have got a very good strip at the airport. But this is in terms of security. Do we have enough security at the airport? We're having our fire engines breaking down. Sometimes you have livestock.
I was on a flight that couldn't land because there was no fire engine.
There you go.
on the ground.
There you go. We're having issues with NAWEC. We're having issues with livestock within the vicinity of the runway. All of these things are happening in the country. And they go build a VVIP lounge, they call it for $10 million. Are we serious as a country?
Yeah, well, it's for the chosen few, the privileged.
Yeah.
Maybe not including you and me. You never know. You are in politics. Maybe one day, you'll enjoy the benefits of that.
Look,
of that
Peter,
VVIP.
if we ever, so let's say when we get to this, to rule this country, or
it's a question of when, not if.
Not if, no. UDP is going to be the next government in this country because people are fed up. People see what is happening. People know the abuse, the corruption is such that there is nobody who we need to explain those things to anymore.
I heard the same language in the lead up to 2021, and nothing happened in 2021.
Things did happen in 2021. 2021, we did not lose. We were cheated out of our victory. I was sitting at Mr. Darbo's office. We set up a command center. We were receiving election results. Up to about 10 o'clock, 10:30, we were winning, and we were winning big.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, the results stopped coming. And OIC was not giving anything anymore.
IEC,
sorry. IEC wasn't giving any results anymore. And when they eventually did, things started going terribly wrong.
Oh.
We were trying to reach our polling agents. A number of them disappeared. Why? We have the impression that some of them were corrupted, tampered with. And the results were being tampered with. So the results coming from the polling stations going to the coalition centers were tampered with, and we had different results, which was why we ended up setting up our own elections monitoring, election result management software, because we wanted to make sure that what we have out of those polls is what is the real result. So we set up our own infrastructure, soft infrastructure for receiving election results and counting them and tabulating them. Because what happened in 2021 is not going to happen again.
In 2026?
In 2026, it will not happen. We have our own infrastructure in place, our software, we're going to work on that, and we started doing that.
But this is your software. The IEC will be working with a different software.
Yes, they will. They will, but we will have our software, and we're all getting the same election results from the polling stations. So if they declare wrong results, we will declare ours, because we have the same material, the same raw material from the polling stations. So they will have to, at that point, prove that they are right and we are wrong, because we'll have the same material. What happens? When you get the results from the polling stations, we all have the same. When they move to the coalition centers, they aggregate them at that point. So when they aggregate them, that's where the mishap happens. Because at that point, you don't know where it's coming from. You know what's coming from your polling station. We don't know what's coming from somebody else's polling station. So they tell you, oh, the total for this constituency is so much. So we give you global figures. When they should publish, we ask them to publish the results by polling station. When they published the final result, they refused, because they couldn't sustain the truth. So they refuse, and they play with those figures. Now, if they do publish wrong results, we will have our results. We will publish our own and publish it by a polling station for the nation to see, and the election observers and everybody else. So that's not going to happen again.
Okay, well, you tried to go to court.
Yes.
What went wrong?
We went to court because we are a responsible, law-abiding opposition party, a loyal one. We do not want to see this country burn. When those election malpractices happened, our supporters were spoiling for a fight. And Hussein Dabo said, no, I don't want to see any blood spilled. He went to the point he was singing for them in front of his house to calm them down. He said, I don't want to see blood spilled. I want you to have children and grandchildren. He said, so we said, no, we're not going to fight. We're not going to go into the streets. We're going to go to the court because the Constitution gives us that opportunity. As a law-abiding institution, we went to court. And our case, we had built a strong case with evidence. If they had examined that case, they would have had no choice but to declare the elections null and void. Our case was not examined on technicalities, it was thrown out. And that will not happen again. So we wouldn't wait for the case to have to go to court and maybe we get a wrong decision. We will make sure that the election results that are announced are what was reflected in the polling stations. So we're going to take the lead now. If they don't publish the results or they publish the wrong results, we will publish the right results. And then we will take it from there.
We're talking to Mr. Lamin Manneh, Assistant Senior Administrative Secretary, responsible for foreign affairs and Gambians in the diaspora for the UDP. It's 16 minutes past 9 o'clock. He is here with me right up to the top of the hour.